All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming on tonight for the Animal and Emotions webinar. We actually have a very special treat with Peggy Hogan joining us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. So when that happens, I don't see your questions and chat. But Peggy, you were seeing it. So if anybody pops up and you see it, you can interrupt me.
Great.
Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share just a little my couple slides, and then I'm going to pass it over to Peggy at that point. So let me get my slide up. It's here somewhere. There we go. So welcome to Animal Emotions. I'm Cindy Myers, and my website is beananimallistener.com. Welcome, everybody. What we're going to cover today is just a little basic housekeeping before we get started. And then we're going to talk with Peggy Hogan, who is a clicker training expert with horses, especially little mini horses. And
big horses.
And big horses, both of them. And so she's going to help us understand how clicker training can benefit not just in training, but what I do is when I release trapped emotions, and many of you have used me for my services, know that as I release a trapped emotion, that's behavior resulting in an undesirable behavior. It's not always enough just to remove those trapped emotions. We sometimes have to go back and do some retraining. And I personally like to do positive reinforcement training. And that is where we are so fortunate to have somebody like Peggy come on, who is a true clicker training expert instead of somebody that just is more of a hobbyist at it like myself. So you can really get a lot of great info from her on how it works, what it can do for you. And even though we may be showing you some videos and slides of working with horses, the clicker training works with all species. I've even seen goldfish learn how to go through a hoop using clicker training techniques. So it is a valuable tool. And then hopefully we will have some time at the end for Q&A, so you can ask your questions. And if we even have more time, I can maybe do a couple demos if you have any animal issues that are going on. So with that, just for some basic housekeeping, if you have any medical issues that you're concerned about, what do we first do? We call our vet. That is what I do. So please do that. I don't diagnose illnesses, but I can provide intuitive support so your pet's natural abilities can work with your veterinary care in healing. And I think, Peggy, we got to experience that with Pixie. Hopefully we get to talk a little bit about Pixie. And I think that was how it needs to work. It was a total team approach in helping that sweet little horse get well again. For serious aggressive issues in pets, I do require that we work with an expert like Peggy or some other animal trainer along with my intuitive work. So it is really important that we don't just remove trapped emotions. There is a habit involved, and we need to quite often retrain that habit. So it's important to have a real expert in that area as well. So we have a team approach. So with that, I wanted to get through all that basic stuff real fast so we could get to the fun part with Peggy. And I'd like to introduce Peggy. I don't know. I think I don't know, Peggy. I think I just came across you because I was fascinated with the stuff you did with horses, and we became Facebook friends, and we found out that we both went to the same school for our master's.
Yeah.
And just following. I've been following you. I've been a voyeur.
No, but we've known each other for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it's been really fun. And I would like to introduce myself by saying some really good things about Cindy. So I want to start with that.
Okay.
And that is about this little horse that you're looking at. Pixie, I don't know if you can see the picture. Both of those pictures, you can see there's a kind of an odd looking patch along the side where it looks like somebody shaved a window in the side of her. And that's basically where they shaved her hair off so that they could do work with echo and, all sorts of diagnostic instruments. And this little horse really did come back from the brink of death. And it was a traumatic experience for everybody because she's a sweet little thing. She's only a year and a half old, and she contracted a virus while we were evacuated from the horrific fires and flood that we had here in Santa Barbara. And there were so many different animals that were evacuated. And she contracted a virus, and then from the virus contracted a secondary kind of thing that happens. It's called hyperlipidosis. Bottom line is she became deathly ill. And I was sharing this story online, and Cindy offered to help, which was such a blessing. And we did work daily where I would tell her, okay, this is what the vet is saying, and this is what I'm seeing. And because the little horse was in the hospital for a month. And it was truly wonderful to listen to and abide by and follow Cindy's advice as well as suggestions, as well as it was a comfort to me to know that we had everybody working to save this little horse. And she is really a miracle horse. In fact, I was with her today, and Cindy got to come visit her on Monday, which was thrilling, and brought her, which was, I've just got to share this, it's just too cute. During the time Pixie was trying to recover, she was having a hard time eating much of anything, but she told Cindy that what she really liked were apples, crunchy apples, not just apples, but crunchy apples. And so sure enough, when
Cut
Cindy
up.
came to visit, pardon?
And cut up.
And cut up. They had to be cut up. So when Cindy came to visit, she brought apples. And you should have seen that little horse. It was like, oh my God, my favorite thing in the world. And then I left the two of them alone to be together for a few minutes. And Pixie absolutely displayed behaviors I haven't seen her quite display, especially with someone she'd never met. And she just rubbed her head, and she put her head in Cindy's lap, and she just, it was like, thank you, thank you. And it was, I wish I'd videoed, but it frankly felt to me like too private a moment to video. But it's was an amazing experience, and I wanted to share that so that you can see just, well, you probably know it if you know her, you know how gifted she really is. And brings the topic then to why am I here? Because this is not my field of expertise, but what is my field of expertise, like she said, is working with positive reinforcement. And for me, positive reinforcement is way more than just a click and a treat, but that is where people learn. That is the entry level. We make this funny sound with a tongue click, or we can use any kind of marker signal that the animal will find distinct, and then we give them something they like. It's easy to say click and treat, but basically what we're really doing is clicking and then giving the animal something that they like or value. And, briefly, is there a way to check in with how many horse people are actually attending? Let me see. I want to raise hand. I wonder how we could do this. Do me a favor. In the Q&A section or the chat section, either way, if you do have a horse, can you just let me know? I would love to just see what horse people are here, and I might be able to gear some specific answers towards the horse people as well. And the reason why I say that is because with a lot of people that get into clicker training horses, they don't want to embrace the technology because they don't want to be using treats. But when you really understand it's click and reinforce, which means click and then give the animal something that it values. That could be food, that could be scratching, it could be a chance for turnout, it could be any number of things. I have horses that will work diligently just to be scratched. So it isn't just click and treat, but that's how we phrase it to make people, it's easier to discuss in that manner. So one of the main reasons why I like positive reinforcement in the training, and it is how I use it, it's not just make the animal do something and then add a funny sound and put a little whipped cream on top of it. It's much deeper than that for me. It's allow the animal to think through a puzzle of what it's going to do to get the person to give them what they want. Let me be a little more specific. Everything that lives and breathes on this planet, in fact, they've even seen it work with slime, but we won't go there. Anything that lives and breathes on this planet is designed to try and get what it wants and avoid what it doesn't want, right? That isn't a mystery. And I like to phrase it in the terms of trial and error. If we want to get something out of a box and we can't quite open it, we try something different. And we'll turn it sideways and we'll turn it upside down and we'll hunt to see if there is a secret compartment that allows this box to slide. The reason why I brought up this illustration is because I wish I could show it on the camera. I'm looking at a little box that someone sent to me for Christmas, and it's a little piece of wood, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful, little inlaid work on top. But I looked at that and I thought, well, that's cute. Somebody sent me a piece of wood. But I could see on the side there was a crack. And I thought, oh my God, it's a box of some sort. And I had to laugh at myself because I was doing exactly what I ask of my horses, is to explore and find out, how are you going to make this puzzle work? How are you going to solve this little problem, solve this little challenge, and then bingo, you'll get something you like. That's what I do with clicker training. I set it up so that the animal learns from their experience. I don't give them the answers. I let them think it through, and I empower the horses. Same with medical procedures. I don't hold them still or restrict them and then click and treat. I let them learn how to put their, like an eye, let's say an eye injury, which, can you tell, Cindy, I'm leading up to that video. Let's say there's an eye injury. I had a horse that had an eye injury and I had to treat it. Well, what I ended up doing was working it so that the horse learned that putting his eye towards my hand was what earned the reinforcer. So clicker training empowers the animal, and with what Cindy does, with the type of interaction we have with these animals, I know that the people are here. I can be pretty assured that the people are here listening to this really do want to empower their animals. They really do want to have their animals have choice and be enriched by our contact with them. So the training I do absolutely addresses that. I see some chat people, so let me look real quick. Okay.
And I'm going to
I've got Jean, 3 horses. Nina. Hello, Nina. She's got 2 horses. One is a mini. And from Jean, it just says yes. So, and then it looks like Sam are here via chat only. Okay, that's fine. So, how fun. Nina is going to, and anyway, hello, dear. It's good to see you. So, we did put up a little video that showed a horse, one of my own, that I was working with again because he had some issues with an eye that needed daily treatment. And in this video, what you're going to see is at first you'll see me restraining him, and it is very, very light restraint. When I show this video, people go, well, I don't see what's wrong with that. That looked pretty good. But you'll see me slightly restraining, and then you're going to see me stop and start again and offer the towel. I put the towel up in a place where he can move his head towards the towel, and he's the one that applies the pressure. So again, there's a lot to learn about this, but real quick, if we can watch this video, and you'll see it, and then we can talk about how that would work from Cindy's world. About. So are we good with the eye care video?
No, keep talking. I got it.
Okay, I'm talking still. All right. So again, when you see me restrain him, it's a very subtle restraint. I'm going to put my hand across his face and just sort of stabilize it. But what you'll see is subtle evasion on the part of the horse. He drops his head, he moves it around, and you see me let go, and I kind of regrip. So Cindy, nod when you're ready. But you'll see it regrip, and you'll see him evade again, and then and it's subtle. But the horse is although he's trying to cooperate, the bottom line is it's like, no, I'm not really comfortable with this. And then you're going to see me, like I said, put the towel up. And then when I put the towel up, he leans his face towards it. And you'll be able to see just how much pressure I put into this towel, because you can see the water come out of the towel. So we have that look of, keep talking.
Yeah, let's see. Let's experiment for a second.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. Oh,
just buffering. We'll see. Is it running on for you? Because for me, it's buffering.
It's buffering.
Okay, good, good.
Seem to go through faster, but it might be because I have so many things up and running right now.
Yeah, it's interesting how that goes. You know, the other thing we can do is give it a minute, and then if we want, we can always post links.
Yes.
And people can watch it later. You know, that's another option.
The other thing I can try, let me try one other thing. Okay. Keep talking. Why don't you talk?
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can.
Yeah, because this video, this is, by the way, there are two wonderful women from Sweden, Emily Johnson-Vey and Ava Bertelsen. And the three of us give a lecture at Clicker Expo. We have actually for 3 years now. It's called Animals in Control. And the whole focus of the lecture is just what I'm talking about. It's allowing the animals to not just have to endure what we're doing to them, but they actually choose to participate. And if they opt out, like, no, I don't want that, we allow that. Now, poor little Pixie, she didn't have a choice with some of those procedures, and that's a very different situation. However, in our day-to-day life and the things that we do, even different kinds of medical procedures, we can still set it up so that the animal will have choice. While she's still hunting, I'm real curious. Anybody can answer in chat. Has anyone seen anything called like the bucket game? That's Chirag Patel. Or heard anything about this? I like to call them start buttons, or you know, empowerment training. There are lots of different little names that are springing up about this.
Okay, I think I can get it now.
Ah, cool.
Let's see. Oh, well, it's being obstinate. Let me unshare a second. I'm going to try this again. Where is it? QuickTime. There we go.
Oh, good for you. You probably could just mute it, Cindy.
Yeah, you think so, huh?
Yeah.
There you go. It's muted. If you want to talk over
see how he moves his head away? It's really subtle. So I just hold the towel up, and you see how he moved into it, and I clicked, and then I reinforced. So I hold the towel up, And he moves. Now watch the water come out. He's leaning into my hand. I am not pressing. If he moves away from that pressure, I quit the procedure. There's the hello, do you want? Sure, you bet. Now that's an animal cooperating.
Very cool.
So now, and Cindy and I chatted before this, but so you have an animal, let's say, that has an experience, they have some fear issues about having their eye touched. Let's say they had a medical procedure. So when McKee first injured his eye, of course, he was sedated and they stitched his eye and he had all sorts of ointment and he had his head bandaged. He looked like, Cyclops. So he had a lot of fear about having the eye handled. And that's where, Cindy, I'm going to punt back to your end of the court.
Uh-huh. And what do you want?
Just talk about fear and how you work with that, and then punt it back. We're improvising. Can you tell, you guys? I'm improvising. I don't know about Cindy. I'm improvising. Punt, your turn. I need to hear your voice now.
Yeah, well, fear is a 4-letter word in my book.
Yeah.
But it's really it is the primary emotion of pretty much all negative emotions. And when we start talking about anything with the fear emotion, we can talk about the fight or flight response system. And when we get into that fight or flight response system, that is pretty automatic. And when we go into that, we just react. Our life is dependent on us doing X, Y, or Z. And thought is not part of it. We need to just react. And so it can create certain behaviors as a result. And I think Pixie is a good example of this, Peggy, that you were showing me Monday when I was with you, because of her, the haltering and her handling, that she was really afraid when they had to do certain procedures on her. And it wasn't that they were doing anything really wrong. They had to administer and do things for her and to her, but she didn't understand it, and it was very frightening and very uncomfortable, and it resulted in a residual behavioral thing right now that Peggy is now working to modify. But there were emotions that were trapped as a result of it, and it was all fear-based. So getting rid of these fear-based emotions help remove a little bit of the drive and the automatic response, so that when you replace it with new training, hopefully it goes much smoother and easier and faster in creating the new behavior that we rather have. So getting rid of these trapped emotions that get into our bodies, in our animal bodies and our own bodies, is really important, because so much is, once they get triggered, they just automatically go there. So for Pixie, when that part of her halter, if there was pressure placed in a certain aspect of that halter, right, when you were just a little gentle pull on her lead, right, it pressed against her back of her head, and she did, instead of going with you nicely, she resisted, and that was just an automatic thing now, because it was a fear place. She goes, I don't want to go there. I know what that feels like. And it just triggered a response system that she wasn't even aware of, really, that she was even doing that. It wasn't that she really wanted to do that. It just meant, oh, if I get this now, I'm going to have somebody do something bad to me. So by removing those trapped emotions, now Peggy can teach her a new way that isn't scary. And that's what she was working on. That was really fascinating to watch her reintroduce, that this doesn't have to be a scary. When that part of that halter pushes against the back of my head, it's not scary. I can eat grass.
Yeah, so let's chat about that. So Cindy watched and worked with Pixie a little bit. And for those of you that are horse people, when I say she became a pullback problem. Everybody's going to know that label. What a great label, pullback. This little horse was as light as a feather on every single halter cue, and she would work at liberty. But again, they would use the halter to hold her in place and do things like put a tube up the nose into the stomach. So she learned that the halter traps her, and of course she would be afraid. But using positive reinforcement with the process, I thought, okay, if the feeling of pressure on the back of her head between her ears, if that feeling causes her discomfort and fear, if she knows that touching the back of the halter and on her pole, they call it the pole, means that I'm asking her head to go down and eat yummy grass, we're going to start to build a new association, a conditional emotional response, if you will. But we're going to start building a new association. So, for example, let me see, who was it? Jean? No, it wasn't Jean. All right, who had, maybe it was Cindy. Oh well, I won't go there. The dog that was afraid of the click sound. Sorry, I would like to be able to call that name up instantly, but it's not up there on the thingy.
Denise.
Okay. All right. So you've got a response to that sound. It's really no different, Denise, than feel on the back of the head means panic. Well, if I can change what happens when the feel on the back of the head for this little horse means grass is coming, it means, yes, please put your nose down in all of this abundant green stuff that you love so much, then I can change how this animal thinks. Now, when I was saying to you, you have the easier job of it, just change the sound you make before you hand the dog food. See if it's afraid of the click. But I have no choice with Pixie. In this particular case, it's a very familiar feeling with a horse to feel the halter on the back of its head between its ears. It will feel that its whole life if it uses a halter. So I have no choice but to go back in and face those demons, if you will. You don't have to with a new conditioned bridge sound. You just start with something that's neutral. But I have no choice with this little horse. So it's a little bit more of a complex process. And then I will be on this trail now, this journey of doing everything I can to say, oh, well, look, you felt a little pressure on the back of your head and a good thing happened. Not that you were trapped and not able to respond. And in everything that I do with her now for forever, I'm going to add choice as often as I can. I'm going to add the element of choice so that if I do touch the back of her head and she does not put it down, I'm going to set it up better for her to respond to it so that the next time she feels like she can choose it. That's not to say that she will never experience no choice in her life. That's not, we have medical procedures. If she's walking with me and darts out towards the street and a car is coming, she will have no choice. I will use the halter to, bring her back in. That's kind of a exaggerated example, but I think dog owners know that too. You're not going to say, here, Fido, if it's running towards the street. You're going to have the leash and you're going to use it. But the rest of the time, I don't have to make her do a behavior. I can give her choice so that she is empowered, if that makes sense. So the other along those lines is, how do I set it up so they have choice? And I am like the queen of obstacles. I love using obstacles to train. If I have a horse that's afraid of a trailer, I look at all of the situations that are associated with the trailer, and I like to find out, well, okay, what are the things that are making it scary? Is it getting on the trailer? Is it a small enclosed space? Is it backing out? You'd be surprised how many horses are terrified of trailers, not because they're afraid to be in them, because they're afraid they can't get out of them. Guess what, Cindy? Pixie, we took Pixie up to the hospital in the van, right? She was terrified to jump out. The first time she came out, we picked her up and carried her out because she was that sick. But when she was well and came home, I didn't bring her home. The owner, she was stuck, and the owner pulled her out by that halter, and she felt like she was leaping off a cliff.
Mhm.
So she was terrified. So guess what we're doing? We're using obstacles, little obstacles, jumping off of toothpicks. In other words, little teeny obstacles where she can be successful, or a tiny piece of wood, or a pallet with plywood on it, or and anything, jumping over things. So I look at whatever I think is scaring the animal and say, let's make this a game of choice and fun so that you can earn the reinforcer that you want by exploring this obstacle, or exploring how to get on it, or exploring how to back off of it. So that's how I approach training. It's not coercion, have a carrot. It's, ooh, what can we do with this fun new thing? Have a carrot. So we have a trailer video. And now I'm not seeing any chats or Q&A things coming up. Are you guys awake? No. The sound of my voice. We
It
still
is
have
different.
13 people out there. Does anybody have a question? Raise your hand.
Right, right. And we can do that. So if anybody just put it in that chat or raise your hand. I'm going to go ahead. You want to see that video with the trailer with the horses coming in?
I would love to show that, because it's a case in point, and you can see how many ways we can reintroduce an animal to their own sense of confidence and curiosity.
Hang on.
Why?
While you talk a little bit more.
I'm going to keep talking. Okay. So again, obstacles. It's amazing how many horses, and I'm going to say dogs too, because I've done this with different species, but horses, for some reason, where their front legs go, now this has just sounded just completely insane. Where their front legs go, their back legs go. Well, that's, of course, they're attached. They have a body. But it's amazing, if a horse jumps over something with the front legs, you could, like a piece of PVC pipe. If you pull that pipe out so that it's no longer there, the horse will still jump with the back legs. So really, honestly, teaching a horse to find out where its back legs are is quite a process, and you're going to have a much more reliable horse if you use positive reinforcement to help them gain confidence with where their back legs are and coordination. Yay.
We got it going. Here we go.
Watch, this will be one where I talk. Here's a friend of mine, Lori Higgins, for any of you that know us from our online stuff. Here goes McKee.
He's so cute.
Yeah, we're going. This horse, it took us about 6 months, but he wouldn't even go near the trailer, let alone walk on it. Ah, this is where I wish you had the sound. The sound of his little feet trotting on these pavement is just cute. It's okay. There it is. So I think this was the short. Yeah, I think this was the short, just the trailer. It didn't show the
training.
the process of working and obstacles and stuff. That was just the sort of like the commercial version. But imagine having your horse learn how to back up onto a small platform. It's that taking one step at a time, lifting the leg, backing onto this platform. It's that process, by the way, is called shaping, and it's also called successive approximations. In other words, you allow the animal to have little tiny successes. There are a lot of people that just kind of want to walk up to the trailer and hope that the animal will go on. But the way I approach it is, wow, look, you took one step towards it, click treat. Oh, wow, look, you took another step, click treat. Now let's go over and do something different. And then I come back and visit the trailer. Oh, look, you took 2 steps towards the trailer, click treat. So I do a combination of approaching and retreating. There are people that, if, let's say, your dog's afraid of water, and you stand there and it's like, oh, good, you have 1 foot in the water. This is great. This is great. And then they make the animal stay there. And it's like holding your hand over a flame. And even though the animal is getting food, and you might think they're enjoying it, just being in that environment can be stressful. So that if you can make short sessions, go away, come back, you're going to be setting yourself up for success way more, so that we don't have to approach the fear level and then undo the fear that we ourselves created just because, and this is true, because we got greedy by asking too much too soon. So these little short sessions where the animal experiences success, and I do mean short, can literally be 3 steps, and then you call the party and go do something different, especially if you already have some fear involved. And I don't know, there's a chat. Wow, cool. So do you want to read this out loud, Cindy, or do you want me
Sure,
to?
sure. This is from Gail. We have a year-old puppy. We have having a challenge having her come to us. As the result is her going to her crate, as all the dogs are in their kennel. We are trying to develop choices for her to come on her own. Generally, treats work for the others, but not so much for her. All the dogs go into their crates and get the treats, but not her. How do we develop a new association for her that makes the crate a home?
Okay. So do you want to start, and then I'll be glad to jump in with technique, but how do you want to answer that first, Cindy?
Well, sometimes, again, we have to be careful when we encourage something, or we can have a consequence that we don't plan on, or a result that we don't plan on having happen as we train. And so for her, I think what's going on is that she's a party girl. And she probably doesn't want, to give up the party. And going into the crate, it's like those little kids that don't want to go to bed ever, ever, ever. And that trumps even the treats. So I again, I would do it when it isn't time for bed. I would make a game like Peggy's talking about that is not at bedtime. We have to step it back a long ways. We have to go back to some other period of time, right, Peggy? I
Yep,
would
yep.
go and just make a game. I would probably even change the room,
That's awesome.
environment, because
Absolutely
it has
awesome.
such an association of this is bed that she doesn't want the crate at all. So I would change the total location and just totally make a game like Peggy was just talking about, that she goes a step or two near it. That's yay. That's a good treat. And then do something else.
And Cindy, let me share a little bit of the science of what you just said. The science being, there is a type of training that's called negative punishment. Okay, so negative punishment means you're taking something they want and you're taking it away from them. So it is punishment. Think about crates. If the fun is outside the crate and you are putting her in the crate, then the crate is really perceived as a place where she feels punished. Because just like Cindy said, if she's a party girl, which Gail, it looks like you agreed, then when she gets in her crate, the food isn't doing it for her, because again, a reinforcer is something that makes the behavior stronger. So just because food is in there doesn't mean you're making the behavior of going in the crate stronger. For her, the punishment of not being out with people is overshadowing whatever you put in the crate. So I have that with my own horses. They're in a pasture. This time of year, we actually got the 4 inches of rain that caused the flood, which is the only 4 inches of rain we've had all year, but it made green stuff grow out in the pasture, which we only see about 3 months a year. Well, that green stuff's really important to the horses. So they get to be out there for about an hour, but because they're minis and they need to watch how much green stuff they eat, when I call them in, they have an exquisite recall. Now they're going into paddocks, not crates. And they will run at a gallop. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen, this little ocean of minis running at you. Unless it's spring and we've got the green stuff out there. At which point they look like, why on earth would we leave this? And two, when we do go in there, she puts us back in our paddock and we can't get at that green stuff. So that sounds a lot like what probably could be happening with, in terms of not just the grass. Yes, I could take what they want, the grass, I could pick a lot of it and have it waiting for them in their paddock. So they're not leaving the grass, they're just leaving the location of the grass. That's one thing I do. Here's another thing I do. I call them in, they come running up, I put down lots of treats and I leave and I let them go back to the grass. Because if we become predictable and every time they go in the crate or every time they go in the paddock, we shut the door, the ones that ends the party for go, well, I'm not an idiot. They're smart. Even the puppy, the 12-week-old puppy goes, in the crate, party's over. Again, we learn from our experience. We learn to avoid what we don't want, and we learn to get more of what we do want. So there are lots of games you can play. Is she toy motivated at all, Gail? Does she like toys?
Oh, I can turn Gail.
Here we go. Her name is Britt. The breed is super smart. Yes, likes toys. Okay, Kong toys. Does she have her favorite? You can do food toys, food puzzle toys. Let her go in there. She can have it, but leave the door open. So it isn't that she just goes in there and the door gets shut. It's she gets her favorite toy in there. She could come out and visit you guys. But if her favorite toy or her favorite, sticks, yep, fill that puppy up with sticks and branches. I don't mean the puppy, I mean the crate. So let her be able to have access to the fun things that are only available when she's in her crate. Start with a big crate so you can put in lots of branches and sticks. But do you see the concept is what I'm hoping to share with you. The concept is you've got to make the thing that you want to have happen be happy as opposed to punishing. And if they prefer something outside, we need to find out what that is. Or when she's in her crate, the crate hopefully is a small one and you can set it on your lap and everybody can hang around and watch TV while she's in her crate. And you can still talk to her so that when she's in her crate, yep, okay, get a smaller one. This is a super large crate, she says. Do you see what I'm trying to set up? I'm just shooting from the hip right now because I understand the theory, which is we make the desired behavior easy, 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 if that makes sense. And we have to understand that if the behavior reduces, it means that on some level, what we want is being punished, meaning punishment means reduced. In the vernacular, she says, thank you. Great. So our trailer loading commercial, again, you know what I might do, Cindy, is post a couple of links. You can post them on your site and we can have people that attended this, they can look at those directly, on their own computers, and we can do that. The last, yikes, where did it go? There it is. The last video that we talked about was, targeting. Okay.
You want that one?
Super, super, super useful behavior. And by the way, if somebody else has a question, please jump in. I know you wanted to wait a little bit towards the end to field questions, Cindy, but I might be able to answer them within the context.
Yep. Now it's
okay with that. So one of the very, very useful behaviors, the first behaviors that we can teach in clicker training is called targeting. The one that most people are used to seeing is put your nose on the ball. Targeting I like to define in a more broad sense, which is put your blank, fill in that blank, which would be body part. So put your blank, body part, on the blank, which would be thing. So it could be put your nose on the ball, or put your eye onto the washcloth, or put your, you're going to love this one, back on the saddle. You can prop saddles up so that the horse will actually saddle itself. You can say, put your neck into this needle. You can actually teach animals to lean into the needle before the needle goes into the vein. They'll actually learn to lean into that. It's amazing what you can teach them to do with positive reinforcement. So targeting is a very, very useful tool. If you've got a horse that's afraid of farriers, you can teach them, put your foot on this foot stand and desensitize them to that process easily. And then when the farrier comes, you have something in place so that it's less scary. So I've got a fun little targeting video. It's lots of different examples of targeting, which is a great way. And again, dogs, it doesn't matter the species. This will have music.
You want the music, or you want to?
You can just turn it down. It just seems to be loud.
Okay.
Here we go. This takes talent, you guys. That's ice water he's standing in.
I want some of that art.
Yeah, McKee, my painter. Okay, we have a couple questions here. Okay, let me see. It says, so Jack has always been has had somewhat of an aversion to putting on his harness in order to go for a walk. He sees it and turns and finally comes with his head down. Okay. All right. So yeah. So there's some element of it. Interestingly enough, when I see, who is this from?
March. March.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the whole name didn't show on my version. Anyway, um, I like to find out what body part is actually, is is it stepping through it? Is it something over his back? You could take a strap or a string or a piece of yarn or something inert, something that doesn't have any association, and just find out if you placed that string on his back, would that evoke that same kind of head lowered ear response that you're seeing. So I kind of like to find out where the sensitive area is. And then a lot of times, if you saw the one horse, the big Frisian, the black horse, giant thing, he didn't want anything near his head and would run the other direction when the halter was presented. And it became a matter of just touch the halter with your nose, click, treat, touch the halter with your nose, click, treat, touch the halter. And then it was, can you, put your head a little bit farther in? And he would do it. I would let him drop his head into the halter. And for a while, it took two people, because I would have someone hold the halter, because that was a lot, and then I would feed while he lowered his head into it. So those were things that I did, especially if you look about like harnesses, any kind of thing that horses wear. If they move towards it, it's easier for me to think that they've developed a positive association, as opposed to me putting it on them and then clicking and treating. So same thing with saddles. If I put the saddle on them and say, here, have a bite of food, it's very different than if I hold the saddle in a position and the animal moves towards it. Saddles are difficult. They're heavy to do that with, but you can simulate that with different items. So I would say, let's chat about what body part is more sensitive. Is it the leg stepping in? Is it something going over his ears? I think you can parse out each one of those body parts to see where the trigger is. And then you're going to know where you're going to want to focus your training a little more, if that helps. And then it says, one of my horses is a foodie, so giving treats is an issue. So specifically with clicker training, I mean, I always want to find out, why are they a foodie? Because there is a thing with horses called insulin resistance, and it's basically the equivalent of diabetes. And if a horse is really aggressive about food, I would do a blood test. There's back to, let's talk about medical issues. I've also run into horses that were very aggressive around food because they were shown in halter. And a lot of times with halter training for show, Cindy, they use the food to tease them into a position, but they don't give it to them. And the horse never knows the criteria, never has reliable criteria. They never know when they're going to get the food. So basically the person is like dangling the bacon in front of the dog, but never giving it to them except to make them crazy, right? I mean, so really, it depends on why the horse is the foodie. Sometimes it's hand feeding techniques. But for the most part, I go clear back to, I'm on one side of the fence, the horse is on the other. I hang a bucket and I toss the pellet into the bucket. If the horse is aggressive with the bucket, then we know that there's probably some real association with food in general, and they might be, it's like, dangling candy. And again, it's there might be some insulin issue. Is the horse overweight with, that kind of foodie? In other words, do you have a hard time, which person? Jean. It looks like Jean. Are there other things? Does a horse have a crusty neck? Are there other things that might suggest you want to test for IR? That's something you might want to consider. But there are a lot of protocols where you can just feed into a bucket, see how they respond, and then you just, every time their head picks up, you toss one single pellet until they're comfortable with the system, and then you can use your, then you can bring a bite in where you feed it with your hand and then toss the next. So there's some things like that I've used. On my website, Clicker Training Horses, I have a free download for a lesson on how to hand feed treats safely. Sometimes the size of the pellet, they don't like rummaging around into our fingers and hunting for a bunch of little tiny pellets. Sometimes one single pellet will solve the problem. Sometimes people drop their hands so that they lower the hand and the horse feels like they're chasing. For the most part, food does not run away. Horses don't have to hunt their food down and tackle it and kill it. It just kind of stays there and waits for them to eat it. So when we hand feed and we move the food around in our hand and they have to reach for it and grab for it, sometimes that's frustrating. So that's a handful of things that I tend to look at um, and start with there. Okay, so am I down to Sally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you start the targeting to the, okay, you think I'm already answering? Yes. There's a beautiful video online on YouTube. It's called Let's Like Haltering. Uh, mm, her YouTube name is Uma Ko. I'm gonna have to see if I can get that link to you, Cindy, or my site. I'll put it up. It is the most methodical, wonderful, wonderful training video of how to work with halter bridle situation, and she's so methodical, and it's a beautiful. Has been tested negative. Thank you. Could you see the video again? Um, you mean the? Okay, so Jen, you wanted to see the targeting video again? Because what we'll do is I'll send the links to Cindy and she can post them, or we could put them on my site and Facebook, even whatever's the easiest, and we can see them
Well,
there.
while we're talking, I can play it again.
Well, sure, whatever you'd like. Did I get easy keeper negative? Okay, so Jean, then I'm going to say we need to work with how you feed, what kind of food it is, how the food is delivered, the size of the pellet, whether your hand is stable or not, and all of those things are things I would work through. And then have you worked with Cindy on this? I mean, again, we might have some food anxiety from other places in his life. Okay, so that's another option. Is just let's find out what. And Cindy and I are both kind of,
Yeah, okay, I found it. Hang on. I found it. Now I just have to.
Okay.
Shoot. Okay. I think you guys can see it now.
Yep.
There we go. The targeting is so valuable. I know I use it with my alpacas. I use it with my dogs. I do. I like using the hand touch where the thing is my hand.
I do hand targeting. I like hand targeting because you never have to worry about leaving it at home. Same with the tongue click. You never have to worry about having it with you.
Exactly. And the haltering I do with the alpacas too. If I can get them to take food, I teach them to stick their noses into the halter, and it makes the halter training so much easier.
Oh, it does. And interestingly enough, with horses, the strap going over the pole can be a real issue. So that's like the dog that with the harness. I really practice a lot of them targeting a strap that's by their pole. So I let them put their head so that they position the strap on top of their head. I don't put it there for them. They learn how to target it that way, which is a trick.
Yeah.
But it takes away, once they've learned that, who's afraid of the strap on the head when you know it's going to earn you a reinforcer? But again, it's not, I will put the strap, you get used to it, I'm going to click and treat. It's, can you figure out a way to get this strap near this body part? So it's targeting. We were prepping for ear trimming using clippers by the ears in that video with those two horses. Same with this one. Don't touch my ears. It's like, right. That's for charity, therapy work, forehead targeting. Wormers, dental exams. I actually taught a lavade using this pee off. It's amazing. This horse is going to a target that's all the way on a tree, so it has to leave the person and then come back and get the reinforcer.
And I really like clicker training because they have to use their brain so much.
You bet.
And even with my alpacas, especially my males, that they have a little smaller area and they get bored. And I find that when I go out there and I clicker train them and work with them on certain things, their behavior improves because they're using their brain and it's stimulating and it's fun and engaging.
And their brain, they're using it for what they want.
Right.
They're figuring out how to get what they want. So, for example, I would like a treat. So I'm going to put my nose near this toothbrush. Okay, click treat. I'm going to put my nose near the toothbrush, click treat, so that you can work from that to, can you put your mouth near the toothbrush, click treat. Now realize that when you do the job, it's not like you can stop brushing the teeth in the beginning to click the treat. So you're not going to be, so, you know, I've got some great video of stuff for dental exam for horses. Well, you can work on duration to the point that you can get the toothbrushing done, and then they can have the treat at the end of the toothbrushing. But so if you say, would it work for brushing a dog's teeth? Yes, that's it's targeting, meaning I will reinforce every effort near the toothbrush. And it's going to take some creative planning and training because you want the animal to hold still while you hold the lips back and however you do brush a dog's teeth. I'm working on tartar control for a horse using clicker training. Can you open up your mouth? Can you open up your mouth and hold it long enough for me to use this dental tool? That's all targeting, and yes, you can use clicker training for that. So what's the reason for targeting? The targeting sets it up so that the animal can learn from its experience. If the horse, you saw some horses in there that were putting their hoof on a stand. So the farrier works when the people come to trim the horse's foot. The foot has to go on the stand. Now, if I take that hoof, that whole leg, and lift it myself and put it on that hoof stand. So Gail, we're referring to your question. So if I lift that hoof up and put it on the stand, that can be a very scary experience for some horses. And the first time they experience that hoof stand, they're afraid of it. You've got a long road to work with, because now the very thing that the farrier is going to use for the rest of its life has kind of a poison feel to it. It's like, Denise, it's like the click. You know, it's an aversive. It's a conditioned aversive. So why I set it up for the horse to explore and play with a hoof stand is that they can realize this is an okay thing. Then I can lift it and put it on the hoof stand, but they've already desensitized themselves. So yes, targeting can be used for desensitizing. Yes, giving them the choice to perform the effort and to realize that like nail trimming for dogs, you can shape the animal to put their paw in your hand, and then you can shape the animal to literally, I've seen people train their dogs to rub their toenails on like an emery board surface, sandpaper, so that they learn to do the very thing that you want them to do, which is trim their own toenails. Does that help? Nail trimming, this needs help. Yes. Well, for what species, Jean? Horse? No, dog. You wouldn't say nail for canine. Yeah. Check out, there are a ton and a half of videos. So work with Cindy, but there are a ton and a half of videos on how you can train the process for nail trimming. It's systematic desensitization as well as having them experience the very things you want to use in a non-scary environment. That last question, Cindy, do I have enough time? Maggie was one of the first ones to ask a question about positive reinforcement for an animal with separation anxiety.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say I am not an expert in separation anxiety with dogs. I have worked with dogs quite a bit, but I will never hang out my shingle as a dog trainer because I'm a horse trainer. Having said that, I do not have corrections because the basic setup is that you've got to make the environment comfortable enough so that the animal is okay. It's a little bit like the question of being in the crate. The animal has to be okay in the environment that it's left in before you leave, right? Which you probably, it's like saying, tell me something I don't know. But how can we have setups where you have a Kong toy and you have something that is a real positive thing, and every time the Kong toy comes out, the little blanket goes down on the ground and they can get their Kong toy, and they have weeks of experiencing that association. Blanket comes out, Kong toy, my favorite chew toy. So then you begin to put that in a place, a room or whatever, so that the dog goes in that room and gets to have its own private time. But you leave the door open so that they can check out that they're not being left. So you systematically approach the situation where you can shut the door for a microsecond, or you shut yourself in that select room with the Kong toy and the dog, and then you leave. It's going to take effort, and there are some extensive training programs set out by people who specialize in anxiety. Okay, but what I hope that I'm giving you with my description is a kind of a lens through which you will look at the problem as, what's the smallest thing that I can get successfully? And if the easiest thing I can get successfully is I can have the dog lying on a blanket and a Kong toy, and she'll be there for 5 minutes, then that's what you start with. You have to start with something the dog can give you and then expand on that.
And if I can jump in, where I come into play with that is that I can remove some of the trapped emotions that created the behavior in the first place, so that the drive isn't quite as strong there. And I can communicate to them a little bit better. And I work with you as well, is because they are so intuitive that I can give you some intuitive tips as well as the training tips that can help with the anxiety issues. But it is something that I do work a lot with training, and clicker training is good because it builds confidence, even if it's something that isn't related to you going away. Usually these animals are very insecure, right? So we want to build confidence. So just giving them a rock solid sit and you're not going away. It's just doing things repetitively for success. That builds confidence. And then by removing these trapped emotions, the layers of it, that really helps, because now we're removing the original source of the problem, and all these other things that you're doing that are positive, that has maybe nothing to do with going away, is putting in a deposits into your bank account, and that's all building confidence that when you go away, you're coming back. When you go away, I'm coming back. I always come back to you. And pretty soon they realize that. So this is where the training and the intuitive work really help animals. I do a lot of work with animals like this, that it can help them tremendously by just getting rid of the stuff that originally got stuck in the first place. There. So I jumped in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, again, we want to share the science and also the spirituality. I'm going to call it spirituality because, well, that's our Pacifica background, right? Tending the soul of the world. We want to look at the soul matters and the heart matters of it all. It's an entire animal, not just one feature, if
Right.
that makes sense.
And that's where, again, I think where you and I work really, what we do is so effective is and having our backgrounds from Pacifica is that we do see the whole mind, body, spirit, and then we use our talents and our passion to help the animals to learn the best way that they know how to learn.
And the reason why I do like empowering the animal, I mean, of course, I like empowering the animal, but the reason why I like using positive reinforcement is because it empowers the animal, it honors the animal, it's they're not there just to I'm going to back out from that statement and say basically what I run into with horses in particular is a lot of information like, well, he's just being stubborn, or it puts labels on the animal that makes it all their fault. Well, he's just being a brat, or that's just a mare. And so these labels that I hear in the horse world when I say, or he's trying to dominate me. There's another good one. And what I like to do is I like to honor the horse. I like to honor the soul of the animal. And in the same breath, I like to say, what are they doing that I can train? So if I think my animal is disrespecting me, what I need to do is operationalize that. And what I mean by that is to say, if I want the animal to step back 3 feet from me during feeding time, that's a behavior I can train. I don't have to label it. I don't have to say he's disrespectful. I don't have to punish it. I can just say, I know what, I want this animal 3 feet from me when I put the food in the food bucket. Now I can train that. That's the cool part. I can train that, and I don't have to take a lot of these external labels and make the animal bad and wrong when all it's as simple as just, oh, I like it when you stand 3 feet. Here's a bite of carrot, or here's a bite of whatever. Now you can have your dinner. And it can be that simple. So just to toss that one out too.
Very good. Let's see. Somebody else. Oh, Denise has a comment.
Okay, Willie now backs up his. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
So yeah, Willie is a good case of animal with a lot of anxiety and did not like to be touched at all. And so it was one of the things you talked about, Peggy, earlier. For him, it was in training or building trust and empowering him. When Denise learned to do T-touch with him, it created a paradox because he started liking the T-touch, and then he had to realize that it was a human providing him that something that felt good.
Mm-hmm.
And then it created a paradox. So then he had to choose: do I want to have a human touching me, or is that human still scary? And then he decided it built up enough, he got reinforced enough with the positive that he finally decided that I really like my butt scratches.
Mm-hmm.
And he requested it of
Yep.
her. He did it all on his own. He backed up to Denise and with his little butt and said, please scratch my butt.
There you go. And that's positive reinforcement. You have something the animal wants, the scratching. You had to condition it slowly and in a sensitive manner. You didn't trap him and say, hold still while I scratch your butt. You allowed the animal to experience the scratches in a neutral environment, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great story. It's a great story of how these two mindsets can facilitate each other.
Right. And a lot of communicating with him that keeps reminding him that humans are not scary monsters, that humans are really, there's somebody he can trust, that
Yep.
he can ask for something, and then he has to think about it. He's one of those animals that needs time to think about it. And I find that's one of our biggest mistakes. We want to hurry and rush into something. We want to see a result really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't give the animal time to really think about it. And I don't care if it's clicker training or what I do with animals, we need to give them time to think about it. And when we give that, if we're patient and we give them time to really think and process, do I want this? We quite often will be pleasantly surprised that they'll say, yes, I do want this, because they really do want to connect with us. They want to have that nice close connection with us, and they want to usually please us, but they just need a little time to go, have to really sort through all the experiences that and their feelings that they're having over whatever this activity that we're asking of them. So don't be afraid to give yourself, to be patient, okay, with the animal, because it really is important. This is where, and you'll see it in their eyes. I know, Peggy, you've seen it. When you give them a second and they just go, yes, I want to do this. You can
Right.
see it in their eyes, or they're not quite, you're training and they're not quite sure what you want yet. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, I get it. Is that all you want?
Oh, you wanted me to back into this horse trailer.
Exactly. But if we try and keep training and click and treat too fast, they don't get the time to think about it.
Well, and that's why I like the idea of the successive approximation, which is a great word, and it's
yeah,
really fun to
I
learn how
like
to
that.
say. But the bottom line is, again, if you can do one step, click, treat, one step, click, treat, then that is giving them time. Whereas, again, a lot of people, it's just let's walk into the horse trailer, but no, one step. And if you teach people to think one step, click, treat, one step, click, treat, then you're teaching people to learn how to give it time, right?
Right. Well, this has been
Are we done?
really a lot of fun. We've gone over a little bit, but that's okay, because this has been just really terrific getting to talk with Peggy, and this has just been a super, 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 super fun evening. I hope everybody's gotten a lot out of it, and you got some of your questions asked and answered. And thank you very much, Peggy, for coming on tonight. I
Well,
really
thank you.
loved having you on. This has been so much fun.
And thank you for all the kind words, everybody.
And I will get those links that Peggy said she might have, some more videos that might help folks. I will get those links and send.
Let's do it this way. Oh, wow. I was going to say, I think most people here are Facebook people because that's how you advertise this, or
Not
should I
all.
just,
Not all.
not all. All right. Then what I need to do is email you.
Why don't you all can come onto my Facebook Animal Listener Facebook page? I can send you the link to that. I can email you the link if that's the best way we can get it loaded on my Facebook page. We can do that.
Yeah, let me send you the links to 2 or 3 videos, and we'll
And
do
if
that.
anybody else can't get it that way, just let me know and I will figure out how to get it to you. How's that?
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. And if you need to reach me, I'm going to quick share my screen here again. If you have any questions, you can reach me, or are interested in my services, you can go to my website, www.beananimallistener.com, and /animal is the services for animals. And right
And
now,
I'm Clicker Training Horses. That's easy. Clickertraininghorses.com.
clickertraininghorses.com for Peggy. And right now I have a 15% discount for those of you who have been on tonight. And just use BAAL15, and it's all caps. So go there and you get a 15% discount on any of my services. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for coming on tonight, and we'll see you again. Oh, next, let's see, the 21st, I am having another webinar on fear. That's a good topic. We talked a little bit about that tonight. So it will be all about fear and how fear creates behavioral issues for ourselves and our animals, and what we can do to help move that along and not have it run our lives. Okay.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. And
Night, everybody.
good night.